Okay, we are back. Today we have got a guest episode. It's myself, Fredrik Sandvall, and Robert van der Voort, and we will talk about business, AI, and more. How are you today?
Oh, fantastic, man.
Great. So yeah, worlds apart, we've got different time zones, but luckily we found a spot. I'm very pleased. So Robert is doing many things, and what I really like is it's a combination of AI and execution. So beyond that typical like using AI as a chatbot, you've been doing this to a higher level that I look forward to dive into further. So what is smartly usually misunderstanding in terms of like AI implementation? I've been working with a big project myself recently with a big organization. So what do they misunderstand?
Well, I know, I think it's powered by the hype cycle a little bit, which is
Yeah.
the things that you see, right? So, we've all heard this AI has been around forever, but really people started noticing it when ChatGPT came out, right?
Yeah.
Like I got myself, I was working with MoveWorks before ChatGPT was a thing, and we
Yes.
were stitching together almost 100 models to do what you can do today with one.
Yeah, it's
Right? And I
amazing.
think that the kind of amazing experience that people have, like getting answers, whether they're right or not, right,
Yeah.
through chat makes them think like, oh, this is this sort of oracular thing, and if we can integrate this into everything, life will be better. But I think that's the mistake.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's so much hype news and everything from like the revenue that's produced by the industry together with like the future huge capital expenditure commitments just to keep growing at a decent pace. And then we can also like link this between different countries and it's like a weapons race in a way, but
Yeah,
AI.
no, I mean it is.
Uh,
It is. I mean, make no mistake. That's exactly what it is. Because
exactly.
the mentality is, well, if we don't do it, China's going to do it, or Russia's
Yeah,
going to do it, or
exactly.
somebody. There's so much paranoia, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. No, it is very interesting because again, I'm sitting at the intersection here between like diplomacy, military, business, all of it in one way. And you can also see how the military is also driving this a lot as well. So I'm parking that there. Uh, so what kind of red flags can we see right now in terms of AI from your point of view? I'll share a few red flags as well.
Do you mean like worldwide or like
Yeah, no,
organizationally or
think big outside your company, like
yeah?
big macro things that you spot.
Well, I mean, the big macro things that I think people don't see is the hidden costs of AI, like the
Yes,
fact that, the huge water usage and, mostly when I talk to folks like they're like, what do you mean water usage? These are computers, It's like,
yeah,
well, that's up to the data center owner, right? Data centers that are hosting these big AI clusters are
exactly.
choosing to evaporate water to cool off those computers that are inside, right? They
Yes,
don't have to do that, but it's cheap and it's very efficient, right? So they do that. So those we don't see that, but that
yeah,
puts humidity into the air, it puts heat out there, that change that's you're talking about directly hitting the like climate change button, right?
yeah,
We're not even
exactly.
talking about carbon dioxide or anything like that. It's just we're moving heat and moisture in huge amounts in very concentrated locations that wasn't there before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's a hidden cost, and we don't know. It's a big question mark,
yeah,
like what that's going
exactly.
to be like.
I mean, right now we're up to more than 10,000 data centers in the US, and the biggest one that are being produced right now as we speak are not in a cold place, but actually in like the desert where it's actually hot instead, which is causing even more constraints. But I don't know how they've solved the solution, how to cool it there, but they've probably been thinking about it more than the two of us. So some of the red flags I really see is that it's fantastic, it's great today. At the same time, the lifetime value of the investments we're doing right now today, if you look upon how long compute is staying alive, that these huge investments right now, they will only last for a couple of years. Then the capacity needs to be much higher, and then also just the wear and tear on chips. Have you got any experience in that space at all? So any comments on that?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
So one, the wear and tear on chips is a very real thing, and this is
indeed.
we could go down this rabbit hole for a half an hour easily.
Yeah, I mean,
But
for those
as
who don't see the video here, he's literally sitting having the tools behind him. And my son Charlie would love this as well. He's building computers for fun. Yeah, carry on,
yeah,
please.
yeah. So as process gets smaller, right? We talk
Yes,
about like the nanometer process, right? We're getting down to like sub double digit, right? There are so many errors that happen at that rate anyway. Like think of like electrons falling off the road, right? Like that happens and that's corrected for. But
Yes.
as those pathways get smaller and thinner, then those electrons create more wear, right? So the net result is that those smaller nanometer process chips wear out faster. I mean, you can dig a computer out of a junkyard from the 80s and you can get it to work,
Yeah,
right? And there's
exactly.
people that do it, right? And
Yes.
check YouTube. So the other issue we look at is like things like solar flares,
Yeah.
different radiation and something like that makes those even more vulnerable. There's some, I don't know if you're paying attention to the AI data center and space movement,
Yeah, yeah, of
which
course. Yeah.
I think is really cool. I mean, I'm a space guy and an AI guy, like I'm all
Yes.
over it, right? But at the same time, like you've got cosmic radiation, you've got to have all this shielding, all this stuff, and it creates this very unreliable place to put compute.
Yeah.
So the smaller we go, the denser things become, the worse that becomes a problem. So typically, working in the enterprise for a long time, typically refresh cycles are about 5 years, right? Three to
Yes, I
five,
agree.
depends on what
Yeah.
it is.
Based on experience.
Doesn't
Yeah.
mean this stuff's bad,
No.
right? But we have this concept of mean time between failure. So enterprises like, we don't want downtime, so we'll just replace everything, and that goes to eBay or wherever, or a landfill or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. And just looking on the capacity and the rate of doubling of compute power. So what we have today in 5 years' time will probably just be a fraction of what we actually need, even if we are already today on a tangent on capacity. For many of the big LLMs out there, they are borrowing capacity from each other and a lot of cross ownership. Leaving that one. So I'd love to do a little bridge here to one thing that is close to my heart, which is trust. So that leads to a question here. In AI, trust is not a slogan. You need to have architecture, a governance, data, decision rights, and there are many, many consequences. So where do you see trust to be really important to, well, basically to
Yeah.
sustain the whole industry? We haven't seen any major data leakage or any official monster thing yet, but it's in the making probably.
Well, there have been. It
Yeah.
hasn't really been like newsworthy. I mean, like
Yes.
there was the instance where DeepSeek's entire database of every prompt that's ever been put through it was just on the internet,
Perfectly wide.
right?
Yeah.
Now, granted, like probably 99% of that's junk, right?
Yeah.
Like people just screwing around, playing around. But yeah, but I mean, these things are real. So yes, trust to me is like super important. I think if you don't have a solid security foundation, and that doesn't mean just like a firewall and standard kind of stuff. If you're not really thinking about AI observability and
Yes.
what prompts are going where, who is talking to these services, what data is going out to them, those companies are very not aware of that and don't really have a great way to track it, right?
Yep.
So you need to get that foundation in there before you ever think about bringing any kind of agentic system into your organization. That's just, to me, that's a no-brainer. But what happens we call shadow AI, where you've got
Yep.
people that just go, they use Claude, they use ChatGPT, whatever, and it's great. It's helping them with their job and it's making things easier and so on. But the
Indeed.
problem is companies don't know what's being fed into them.
Yep.
And most of these frontier models say like anything you put in here can and will be used for the next model, right?
Exactly.
So for training data, so somebody might ask, and there's been vulnerabilities where we say like, what is the salary for this CEO, or what is this person's social security number, or things like that, where that
Yes.
data is just made it in there.
Yep.
I've talked with some folks like from Grayswan, for instance, who does like red teaming on AI frontier models,
Good
and they
point.
told me that like we're trying to figure out, or we're trying to make sure that the plans to make the nuclear bomb don't make it out of the model, right? And I was like, what do you mean out of the
Yeah.
model?
Fair
And
enough.
she's like,
Yep.
well, understand that like all this stuff gets made into these models, and we don't know where it came from. It's just this big pile of information. I'm making this a little simpler than it is,
Yes.
but big pile of information, you don't know what's in it,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
but as far as trust goes, I think if you're doing agentic systems, uh, you have to have provenance. You have to know, if I'm going to use this tool, plugin, whatever you want to call it, I need to know where it came from, that it's a trusted source, that it hasn't been hacked or replaced by something.
Yes.
We do this in the software industry with software with hashes, right? So you check this MD5 hash, it matches this.
Yes.
It's basically a representation. It's like the CV number on your credit card,
Yep.
right? It doesn't exist really. Well, it does. It doesn't really exist for agentic systems. People are just going out there with OpenClaw, like you saw those day one vulnerabilities with OpenClaw, where people were downloading plugins and like so much of it was just malware,
Yes.
right? And yeah, it does the thing, but there's other things it does too, right? So VDV Labs are actually partnering with Hashgraph Online. So a little
Yes.
plug for them. They
Yep.
were very, very, that's what they do, right? So we're using Web3 and blockchain to essentially
Yep.
make sure that things have that verifiable provenance. And those are going into standards bodies that are rolling out. And there's a few different parallel efforts that are going on right now, but I think this is absolutely a must.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I also, we have mentioned before this data leakage in organizations and between organizations and throughout all the internet as well. While people, we're all lazy as human beings. So is there a shortcut and people get the taste for like, this is quite easy. I have relatively recently seen uh, like really confidential data that should not be in the open space at all used one of the most simplest APIs, which is doing illustrations of things in a very easy way. So you can even see like the brand name of the bottom of the slides. So it's like this is not great,
Yeah.
not great at all. And that's just one example. And of course, the depth of this is enormous because those who are experimenting have been finding ways and so on. And different organizations got different policies. Some are working very much locally, which I find quite interesting. It was more than a year ago where I saw some major organizations actually starting to buy chips straight from NVIDIA to create their own local solutions instead of sending data off. So feel free to elaborate on. There are many ways how to set this up, of course, but why
Yeah.
does it make sense for many organizations to actually not share this online, but actually do it locally? And it's not as hard as you might think today already.
Yeah. No, but so it's not as hard. It's the thing is, it's the investment, right? And I would say, as somebody who sells, in my day job,
Yep.
sells AI compute, right?
Yes.
I feel like it's the same way with like wireless and wired Ethernet, right? You wire wired Ethernet always, and then if you have to, use
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, right?
Yep.
Don't
Yep.
lean into Wi-Fi, right? Because your stuff's out there, right? And it's
Yes.
another attack surface too.
Yep.
If I have my AI internally, then I don't have to worry about where my data is going because I know
Yes.
where it's going.
Yep.
I know how it's being, well, I might not
Yes.
know how it's being used, but at least I know it's here, right? And then the other side of it is kind of like, again, from the investment angle, the hardware, the cost over time. We're talking about life cycle of things, right?
Yep.
Well, while we may have like twice the need for compute in 5 years, right? What you had 5 years ago still does exactly what it did 5 years ago. So
Yep.
if your needs don't change, then your capacity is the same and things are fine, right?
Yes.
I would say I put as a footnote there that I'm going to project and prognosticate a bit that compute's going to change a lot in 5 years. Like we're using GPUs right now because that's what does well at
Yep.
what we're doing,
Yes.
and because that's what we have that does well. Google realized a while ago that GPUs weren't the way to go. They use TPUs,
Yep.
just much smaller, much lower powered
Yes.
chips, a lot more of them that are way more efficient at doing what they do, right? We see companies like TensTorrent, with their black hole, wormhole, their cards are like way more efficient, very, very fast, not as fast as like a, B300 from NVIDIA, their
Yep.
highest end
Yep.
stuff, of course, but it's more cost effective and it uses less energy, right? Where there's actually advances now in photonics. I don't know if your listeners may or may not be,
Yes.
most people are not familiar with photonics, but basically doing compute with light, right?
Yep.
So that's, and then the bridge between that compute and storage, we're on the cusp of actually getting storage that's photonic based as well. And once we have that, that full pipeline is orders of magnitude faster than doing it on silicon with electricity
Yes.
and with GPUs. And, the power efficiencies are insane compared to that. So all of those big problems that we have now, if we had that tomorrow, I want to say would be solved, right?
Yeah.
So I'll throw that out there. That's bleeding edge stuff.
Yes.
I won't even bring up quantum.
No,
Um,
next level, yeah. And again,
yeah.
I mean, if we rewind a bit more than 1 year from when this is recorded, it was unheard of that many of the big companies would do their own chips. But right now, because of competition and the quantity which is required, so basically all of the big ones are now having some kind of own production of
Mhm.
chips and own data centers, and do not dare to rely on in this sensitive and hyper growth time that just to buy services externally, and I think that goes for most of them. All right, so I just like to highlight a few like security things which might or might not be known to everyone out there. So I've been working with intelligence and military intelligence and business intelligence for many years in the past. And if we go way back, I mean, it's so easy to actually read what is on your screen, to read what's on your phone, to tap what's happening in even like in a cable, and obviously any kind of open network that you're using. So just be aware that basically everything that you have can be read by most people that they really invest into it. So yeah, feel free to build on information security for like the non-advanced user, just things to think about.
Yeah, so there's a lot of strategies actually for data security, right?
Yeah.
So key-based obfuscation is one. So we say like we change John to Jill, we change
Yeah.
a 7 to a 3, right? And then we have a way to decrypt that essentially when it
Yes.
comes back. So the math can be done, if you will, yeah, more or less on
Yes.
that data. And then that's really the right way to do it. I still see, I'll never name any names, right? But I still see many companies using older production data as a
Yeah.
development data, like because you
Yes.
want to work on the kind of data that you have, you want to get real results and stuff like that. But the danger in doing that really in the cloud, and I mean even on premise, right? We've got to keep attackers out. Period.
Yep.
That's another rabbit hole we can get into, like agentic attacks. It's a real thing now. It's very real.
Indeed.
But it's you need to do something with that data. You need to manage that data. In fact, I'm very big on AI governance. It's the first things. It's so boring. The first things I talk about are security and governance. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, well, we just want to get to the good stuff, right? Just get to the action. Let's just do the no. You need to have a governance committee that's actually built up of more people than you would think, right? And I'm like, I will be the first person to tell you the opposite of progress is Congress. It's a little American political
Yeah.
joke for you.
Well, it works for me.
But death by committee, right? But the reality is this, right? If most people wouldn't think we would need HR to be involved in, well, hopefully anything. But
Yes.
sorry, HR. But especially like AI, right? Well, the reality is that you might have sensitive employee information that you didn't know was not okay to have
Yep.
there,
Yep.
right? There might be also different countries have different laws about those kinds of things, right?
Indeed.
It's not just GDPR; it's all over the world. It's different. Well, data localization. There's all this kind of stuff. So those people are really needed in every use case that you come up with to make sure that you're compliant, that you're not violating employees' rights, civil
Yep.
rights, like what, a million different things, right? Then you get to the good stuff. If it still makes sense. And that's honestly, that's why a lot of these things die.
Yep.
There's a stat that came out like earlier, or was that like end of the last year? That was like 90% of production things never make it to production, doom and gloom, right? And they actually wound it back because they didn't want to sound bad, but it
Yeah.
was like 90%. And it's because once you get to that, all right, we're ready to launch, and they go, whoa, 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 like this violates this regulation and blah, 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 blah. Or this actually does nothing for the business. Like it's good for you, but doesn't do anything for us. So we're not going to pay for it. Or.
Yep.
So that's kind of like that's kind of my thing, right? I will be like, hey, did you think of this? Did you think of that? I think it's important that we take an outsider's perspective. If you're looking at anything that involves data that you care about, you need to
Yep.
think about how would I get that? How could I attack that? Like I want to steal that. How could I possibly do it? Right. And there's a lot of vectors.
Yeah,
So I know
exactly.
that's a little vaporous, but
Yeah, and we also have quite a lot of people who are like global entrepreneurs listening to this one. So almost regardless where you are, there will be a lot of small, annoying legal things where you're operating. So, for example, in Europe, we got the GDPR, which you need to be compliant to, what you're allowed to save, and you need to like insure, etc. And even like a popular like digital nomad place like Dubai has also got things you need to register as well, and this is the same pretty much everywhere, and that's again, for an early founder, maybe not the first thing you think about, but those silly fines can often be into like tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands quite easily for just some basic stuff like just populating your CRM, which is crazy, but it takes a couple of years of business experience to pick up these things as well.
Yeah. I mean, look, just to give your listeners some perspective, like
Yeah.
most software platforms, most SaaS platforms do not roll out worldwide. They'll roll out in
Yes.
one region, and then you'll be like, okay, most people do have this, right? Like have a lawyer
Yeah.
or something. They'll be like,
Yeah.
wait, hold on, we got to do this a certain way. You got to roll it slow. So even in big enterprise, like I've had customers in EMEA and Saudi Arabia. So you
Yes.
mentioned like those countries are very very specific laws about this stuff, and they're like, we want this. Like,
Yep.
why can't you just spin it up in AWS over here? They're like, well, because it's just not that simple. There's so much complexity to it, and sometimes like it requires a re-architecture,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's just like I can't put the storage there; it has to be here, and I can't do the compute this way because it has that data and so on. So there's
Yeah.
just a lot to it.
Yeah, I mean, again, just because you got a cloud solution, that cloud solution also need to be compliant with whatever you plan to do. So again, big picture, but many of you out there, you might find that big picture relevant as well. So diving more deep into what you do more specifically at the moment. So how do you help companies and customers at the moment?
Yeah. So I'll say I haven't had any bites. I'm also not really advertising,
That's
but
okay.
my personal site, Robert VDV, is kind of explains like my I explain it as I'm very Dutch in my communication style, which is
Okay.
right? It's very direct, right?
Yes.
And not everybody that's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But if you're trying to figure out like, hey, what shouldn't we do? What should we look out for? Kind of like the things we're talking about right now,
Yes.
but in a lot more detail, like
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. Like I don't want to call anybody's baby ugly, but it is what it is, right? Like
Yes.
an AI project is an AI project. Perfect example is I talked to a company a few weeks ago. They said we were talking about their AI initiatives. They said we have 474, I think it was of them, 472,
Yes.
something like that. And I was just like smoke came out, right? And they're like, we're trying to narrow it down to 2 dozen. And I was like, all right, back up. Like we should probably start with like 24 and try to narrow it down to two, right? Because you need a success. You need to see how it goes through and then figure out what that looks like and then repeat, right?
Good point.
400 something comes from people's frustration. It comes from us, like the Claude users, the Claude desktop users that are figuring out how to clear out our
Yep.
email boxes, right?
Yep. Yep.
That shouldn't become a company initiative, right? It's so, and so it speaks a little bit kind of to the leadership of it, right? And the race, like, and you can race if you race with your shoes untied, you're going to trip,
Yep.
right? And it's very easy if you're not paying attention to everyone around you. You're very, focused down on what you're doing in your company, in your bubble. That's kind of where I come to pop that, right? It's like,
Yes.
here's what's going on in the industry. You need to be looking out for these kinds of things. And that's, I don't charge for these things. You can hire like Boston Consulting, a lot of people for like,
Yep.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. Conversations sometimes is all people need. Like an
Yeah.
hour conversation, just get you on the right track. Oh, wait, I didn't think of that, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. The other parts of VDV Labs is we actually started it as a collab. So the idea is we can have like different engineers who have different skill sets, but not, let's say, a 3D printer or a laser cutter or something like
Yep.
that, where they can get rapid prototyping done. Now you can pay for it, but it's expensive. If you're just trying to get something to iterate, you can spend thousands of dollars iterating on
Yes.
something pretty simple, right? And if you don't know CAD and whatever, anyway, uh, so the idea was to bring these people together because I found that I've met a lot of really brilliant people that are in their day job
Yeah.
and they're so juiced at 5 o'clock when it's quitting time that and they got family and everything like that, that those awesome ideas they have will never go anywhere,
Yeah.
right? I remember when I was a kid there was this company called like Invent Co or something like that, right? It was kind of like, pay us $100 and we'll steal your idea. That is not what we're trying to do. we have a very we have a very broad M&DA where it's like, look,
Yes.
I can't use any of your stuff, you can't use any of my stuff. We will collaborate. If we can help you launch it,
Yes.
awesome, right? We're working on launching our own stuff. So I've
Yes.
got multiple SaaS platforms. One's a kid video game, like you wouldn't think, right? It's a kids
Yep.
video game. We've got a logistics platform. I'm working on on Chip, I'm looking at his blinking lights over here, who's embodied agentic AI, which is
Yes.
really becoming a big thing now, actually. You're seeing a lot of like bipedal humanoid robots and things like that, and cute
Yeah, I
little
like
ones
it.
walking on stage. But really the idea is like there's behind that, I guess, like that's our North Star, right? Is agentic embodied AI,
Yep.
because elder care is becoming a huge deal in the country and really just across the world. I mean, Japan, I'm always horrible at remembering stats exactly, right? But Japan's having a real crisis around this. There's a very
Yeah, I know.
large aging population and not a lot of people that want to take care of older folks, right? So we're going to see a lot of service robots. I think that's going to be, other than just factory automation, like arms have been around forever, right? But other than that, we're going to see a lot of elder care stuff, I think. And I think really what I'm trying to do with Chip is give you a companion, not just somebody you can talk to and it will be your AI counselor.
Yes.
Watch out for that, by the way. Like, please, people, like, remember, AI tries to make you happy and agree with you,
Yeah,
right? So,
exactly. I
but
mean,
yeah, we'll like be able to remember things. Where did I leave my keys? Hey, what was I supposed to do? Like, so he has a working memory and
yeah.
really remembers you and the things it's done and the places it's been and so on. And I think that's going to be really what's game changing and really being more biomimicry. Really,
Yeah.
that's the kind of approach we're taking. Is that nature did it well? Let's just basically copy that with robotics and AI.
Yeah, exactly. And also partly dating the episode as well. So right now we are at the stage where you as like consumer and solo user can very much have like all of your data, regardless if you put in a project or 1 million threads, you can now have almost all of it in like not one context window, but it will be all useful to whichever tool you're deciding to use as well. So yeah, I had another thought since you mentioned Congress before, and we have been speaking about AI replacing people, and now you mentioned robots. One thing that I see popping up here and there in politics, like, but who will pay the tax? So have you come across the conversations like we need to tax the robots as labor? I've
I
seen
don't
it.
think Chip would want to pay taxes. He'd
I mean,
probably be
one,
like,
one
"That's
reason why I love to have this household robot is not to pay tax.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah." Yeah, well, hey, look, I don't think you have to pay workman's comp or healthcare benefits or sick leave
well,
or,
spare parts is
FMLA
expensive.
or, yeah,
Lubrication.
it's like, yeah, lubrication, right? And once robots are making other robots, but like legitimately making and fixing them, like we have
Yes.
assembly lines that are, I mean, I've talked to folks they have manufacturing lines that are lights out. Like
Yeah.
basically trucks come to drop stuff off, load things, and then other trucks to come to take them away, where everything is completely automated. There will be a point, and I hope it doesn't get, I don't know if anybody out there's a Philip K. Dick science fiction fan, but if I hope it never gets to the autofac state. That
Yeah.
I just hope that never happens. That will be completely pizzled.
Yes.
Um, but anyway, I think once robots are actually maintaining robots and fixing robots and creating robots, kind of like being that, and it will happen, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In that self-sustaining cycle, I think that's where things will be a little bit more manageable. When we talk about things like universal basic income, I heard it recently, which I
Exactly.
like the sound of better, universal high income. Like I like that better, UHI, right? And then we could kind of free us to do the things we want to do. I think that's the utopian future.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be a lot of suck in between now and that.
Yeah.
There's going to
Exactly.
be people that are displaced from jobs. There's going to be people that are displaced even from countries and things like that. And I mean, you see it already with climate change, right? Where there's be countries that are going to be underwater in 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Like whole coastal areas, right? So
Indeed.
that's changing the job market. The latest U.S. jobs report came out. Actually, like 100,000 some odd jobs were created
Yes.
more than they thought. So, like,
Yeah.
yay, good numbers. But it's still a reality, right? So,
Indeed, yeah. No, it's very interesting for sure to see where this is going. I made a prediction earlier that many people spoke about like the last year's the year of agents. I think this is the year of agents, but it's all like what do you even call an agent? And right now, agents are getting more and more popular. They start to orchestrate each other, which I think is really cool. You can have an agent like supervisors and so on. But the people who are now doing this, they are just fraction of a percentage. both in terms of companies
Yeah.
and individuals. So what we hear and what we talk about right now, me and Robert, don't feel bad that some things might be over your head or not even in your interest. That's cool. We're a bit nerdy. But will this be the year of when agents can take on more responsibility, or are we still at the pioneers get it right and the key consulting groups? Thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of individual responsibility when it comes to, or there should be when it comes to agents, right?
Yeah.
It's actually pretty trivial to create an agent, right? And not even on a cloud platform, but if you're doing like hand rolling by code, I mean, we got AI coding tools, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
you literally have conversations with these integrated development environments, and it can go and build these things for you.
Yep.
But what doesn't come with that is guardrails, right? The human in the loop stuff. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
You have to code all those things in. And I will tell you, that is very complicated. All right.
Indeed.
This is something I struggle with on the regular. I think I finally got it down with Chip, but every once in a while I got to be like, nope, don't do that. Like, but I'm sitting here watching
Yeah.
it. We don't want to do that. We want to just tell it, go do the thing. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, where they used to say, like, it doesn't matter. All I really care about is the result. Right. Like, I don't care how you do the thing, just get it done. I just want the result. That's kind of like the boss that hires a person and trusts them to do the good work, right? But the problem with agents is that they can do all kinds of weird things to get there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Really weird things. Like I heard of one recently, actually somebody at work, other work, that created this agent, and it asked it to get a reservation at this restaurant that's really hard to get a reservation
Yeah.
at. It had no, it was Airtable or Open Table or whatever. I don't ever do reservations. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
just
from
not that
there too.
fancy.
Yeah.
But it couldn't do it because it wasn't listed. So it downloaded a speech model, uh, created a way for it to talk,
Yeah.
used Twilio, made a phone call, talked to the people at the restaurant,
Yeah.
and then it called the Open Table thing to tell them that they wanted to get the restaurant an account on Open Table because in order to book things online, they
Yeah.
needed to do that. So it was like impersonating the restaurant.
All right.
Like, what? I mean, yes, that serves the user,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
But I guarantee you that user never would have wanted that to happen like that
Yeah.
way, right? It's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 just stop and tell me that you can't do it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
On the note of like, did it do that? A friend of a friend, he told me a recent story where the AI basically, without any instructions whatsoever, just fired the agent and created a new agent because the other
you're fine.
agent's job was in not good enough. So basically, the agent number one is kicked out. He's now on garden leave, and agent number two has self-selected, self-created, and now doing maybe a better job. According to who? Well, the new agent. I think it's really cool, and then you can have multiple layers on that, and yeah, it's
AI ethics.
fascinating. I have not gone down that deep so far. To same with like guardrails, like you said, like what do you want to allow to have access to?
Mhm.
Um,
And how do you want it to act? There's a lot of that, and these things are, their outcomes are non-deterministic, right? But they're still programmatic systems that you create to make them an agent. And
yeah,
all agent, everybody hears agent. All agent means is like it can do stuff.
yeah,
That's it.
yeah,
Just like human agency, we have the ability to affect our world and do. That's when you give the difference. Otherwise, you just have a chatbot,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
So I think you bring up an interesting thing, which is like ethics, AI ethics, right?
yeah,
Which is another, so governance, security, and ethics. Those are probably the three main things I care about. Everything else is secondary,
yeah,
honestly.
exactly.
Like, it's
Yes.
great if we can get productivity gains, but it has to be at no cost, hopefully no net cost to
Yep.
humanity,
Yep.
right? So there's been a lot of experiments actually that have been done in research labs and that are ongoing now. And in fact, healthcare is actually the biggest area where this stuff is done, where we're like right around the corner from a cure for cancer right now. Like, that's reality, right? And this has been because of AI creating these novel compounds and doing all this testing, so that instead of testing 1,000 different compounds over the 5 years or something like that, we
Yes.
can test maybe three in a couple of weeks in the wet labs, right? But those are done by teams of AI researchers. So it was one out of Stanford. I was actually just recently there doing an advanced AI course with
Yep.
Stanford, and we learned about the one of the doctors that spoke has this thing, and you can go download it. I'll send you the link to their GitHub if people are interested in seeing it. But you can spin it up yourself, and it does require like a lot of compute resources because this thing will spin up like 4,000 agents that run in parallel to do crazy stuff. You can scale it down, but you can essentially create a whole company that is just AI agents, right? As long as they have like really good directives. And I'm not talking about a little, oh, I wrote this really nice paragraph. I mean, like, like a job charter. You want to put all of this, be very detailed. And when you spin it up, it works. There's actually a brick and mortar store in California, in San Francisco, that's run by an AI. It's completely by an AI, right? And it makes phone calls and orders stuff and like has things printed and shipped to. There's 2 humans that work there because you need arms to do stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I think just kind of bringing that around, right? The ethics part, you talk about job losses. Right now, they're in customer service, they're in the warehouse, right? This is the beginning of it. I will, again, prognosticate that you could replace anyone in a company with a very functional AI agent, right? And it will be.
Trying to agree, sure. Yeah.
Well, but it won't be till like managers, right? And so anybody who's worked in a huge organization, some managers, it feels like maybe really all they do is run reports, right? Like they ask you how you're doing, run some reports, they give that to their manager. That's easily replaced by AI, right? So it's not going to be until AI starts replacing the C-suite. Once the board goes, you know what? We're tired of dealing with you guys.
Yeah.
Like then that'll be like, whoa, hold on a sec. I think that's going to be where people say like, all right, whoa, we're pumping the brakes because like I want my multi-million-dollar salary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But who does that benefit though? See, that's where I go back to the ethics part. It's like, who are you really benefiting at that point? I use a lot of words. My wife puts it down to Jeff Bezos still needs people to buy his stuff. She didn't say stuff, but so, but you get the idea, right? There still has to be money and jobs and so on. And then the human cost of that, not just talking about poverty, but agency. I think one of the, I'm going to throw this out there. I did psychology in college, but kind of my hot take is that not feeling like you have a sense of agency leads to depression, like all kinds of negative stuff. Okay. Like feeling like I can't control my world. No matter what I do, I can't get ahead, like those kinds of feelings. And they're not wrong. Right. Maybe there's you could be like, oh, well, you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do whatever. Certainly that's my story. We skipped that whole point, which is good because it's a long story. But it's real. And the more we do these things, people talk about de-skilling and so on. Right. But the more we get into using agents and relying on all this stuff, the less we do, the less agency we have. And if you don't have the drive to like, oh, I want to be a painter now because I don't have to like fold my clothes anymore, right? If you don't have that thing, and not everyone does, right? If you don't have that, you're not going to feel useful. You don't feel like you have a place in society. And even like biologically, if you look at other species out there, there are things that some other species even push out things like with the weak and so on. Like, oh, if this animal's injured, they'll keep it out of the pack, or if it's sick or whatever. And like, I would, again, prognosticate, hot take here, the more we push into this reliance, if you will, or dependence, maybe that's a better word, right? Dependence on AI and AI agents, then the less agency we have as a human race, right? And that will have a knock-on effect. I can't tell you what exactly that's going to be, but it will be there.
And also many people have a much better relationship already with their AI than their spouse and or their friends. Same thing there, because it's very nice to have someone who never confronting you, who's just saying yes and you're doing fantastic. Yeah, you're so good. Great idea.
I like to use it in the opposite way. Like I literally, my prompts, I like Grok because it won't
bullshit.
Same. Right? Can I say bullshit on your show? Sorry. And my prompt is literally like, find what's wrong with what I'm asking first, right? Don't just congratulate me or like say that's a great idea, It's pretty good. It's kind of negative prompt, right? But that's what, like, if I'm talking AI, I don't want my ego stroked. I want an answer to a question. I want a partner in crime and brainstorming,
I published 2 books this year, and before I did so, I had a couple of different filters. So I was creating like a board that were they were reviewing the book from different point of view, and they all, of course, Warren Buffett to Alex Hormozy have different, very opposing views. And in this case, I done an AI cover page for this book, which is around like how does the finance system work behind the curtain? What do people not know? So I had a very futuristic picture, but then when I gave the whole book to Grok, it didn't even pass. I mean, I gave it a extremely harsh prompt to really basically just kill me, basically, and it didn't even make it past the first page. So here, for those very few who might be able to see this, there was a guy here before who stood by the abyss, and there was like Bitcoin and graphs, and then it looks like the really the apocalypse. And since I talk about fairly serious things inside the book, I took Grok's advice and I completely revised the whole thing from what I really liked and like look like a really nice movie cover to slightly more serious. So yeah, and then it continued.
I need to listen to Google, I think, because every time I write an email, I see like a little blue dots under like half of the stuff that I've written. I'm like, what the heck is this? And it's like more concise, more concise, more concise. I'm like,
Yeah,
shut
yeah,
up.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah,
No, but
that's a trap. Like you don't want to get in the trap either, right?
yeah,
Of like because anytime you throw, I would bet, I haven't written a book, but I would bet anytime you throw what you've made into
yeah,
that kind of cycle, it'll probably find something,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
its job is to find something,
exactly.
right?
But I mean, I've been writing multiple books over the years, and to now have like uh, an editor, a proofreader, to have like test readers, all of that stuff, to have it done in like minutes, saving many,
Yes,
many thousands of dollars and actually get a better product out there, I think is really fantastic. Unless I say unless that you like task the AI to do the whole book for you from scratch. That means that's useless. I mean, right now, Amazon is fighting that big time to stop people just from just publishing AI stuff, which yeah, for good reasons. And I'm happy that they try to self-regulate a bit. Otherwise, yeah, all previous books and blogs and everything will just become new books without zero filter or sourcing whatsoever.
right. Yeah, and I wish YouTube would crack down. I mean, there's so much the the fact that OpenAI dumped Sora, saying
Yeah,
that we're
yeah,
tired of all the slop, the AI
yeah,
slop out there.
yes,
It's a new term, right? It's like
yeah,
make it in the dictionary, hopefully.
yeah, we will.
It's a thing, and it's almost hard to find good content when there's just this sea of junk,
Yeah.
right? The little 2 minute things or the 30-second shorts, or they're just like, I don't want this. Get out of my face,
Yeah.
like trying to
Yeah.
find a certain thing.
I mean, we're both old enough to know that if you go back a number of years, like Reddit, a lot of it, again, sorry for those Reddit lovers out there, a lot of stuff on Reddit is quite poor quality. There are some really good things out there as well. But if now the whole of Reddit, regardless of quality, became like a main source of the truth, and
Mhm.
that many people also been making funny things out of this as well, just to train the AI to get themselves or a stupid false idea into reality by just pumping it through Reddit. Interesting stuff.
That's kind of yeah. It's so poisoning. That's a real thing, right? And
Yeah,
that's I would say for folks who are building, especially folks building local AI, there's lots of open weights out there on Hugging Face, and
yeah,
you don't know anything about them, right? And there are some that are published that these are known vulnerable, so on and so on. But
yeah,
those are things you need to take into consideration as a builder. Is supply chain vulnerability is what we call it,
yeah,
right? So any of the libraries you use, any of these LLMs can be poisoned. And in fact, that was the big worry when DeepSeek R1 hit the road, right? Was that
yeah,
the U.S. government was like, you may not use this because it's from a Chinese company, which basically means Chinese
yeah,
government.
yeah,
I know there's a
exactly.
lot of anti-China stuff, which I don't know. Like, it's not like we don't steal
No,
things
I mean,
in other countries,
China
but
is partly owning owning the US as well, if you look deep enough. So yeah,
Yeah, we just exceeded. You see that? We just exceeded our GDP and
I
our
know.
debt. Yay, go America.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Is it?
But
Oh, sorry, it was not a tick box exercise. My mistake. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, guys, if you've been hanging in until now, me and Robert, we talk about so many different things here. You clearly are interested in AI if you hang around until now. I have no idea what we're going to call this episode later. I'm probably going to ask AI how to summarize it.
summarize this for me.
Yeah, no, jokes aside. So the whole podcast name is Invest in You. How do you invest in yourself?
Oh, well, so in the last 5 years or so, it's been not being scared to spend money on myself and my ideas.
Yeah.
And usually I would like my whole life I've like shot down my ideas or somebody else has. Like, and that's the thing. Like there's a certain amount of you can't listen to everyone, right? If you're going to become an entrepreneur,
Yep.
you need a certain drive, and it either comes from just sheer motivation and willpower or frustration. Mine came from frustration. So
Yep. Yep.
tired of not being able to like get something out there, not being able to do, not being a, not having agency, right?
Yeah,
Bring it back to
exactly.
that.
Yep.
So that's number one. And things like Chip, Chip is kind of, I'm keep looking at this blinking light over here. Chip is nothing right now. He's a box.
Yep.
Runs on all local AI. It requires like it's a big investment, to
Yeah. No.
buy all this hardware, and like
Yep.
it could go absolutely nowhere.
Yes.
I'm not building it right now as a product you can buy. It is more of a proof of like, hey, this can actually work in a novel way. But that's an investment in me too, and that
Yeah, exactly.
it tells me like I can do this. I can get this out there. I hope it succeeds. I hope it goes and benefits people and all that. And everything I try to do, that's the main goal, right? Is like,
Yeah.
how does this benefit more than just me, right? Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one,
Yep.
to
Yep.
quote Spock.
Yep. No,
It's a
exactly.
good saying. But so I guess that's how I've been operating. And it's not just like, oh, I'm not scared to buy hardware. I've got 3D printers, lasers, a whole pile of
Yep.
junk behind me to make stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's been part of it. But then also just the time thing, right? And this is, again, I have a day job, which I'm carving a little nugget out of right now.
Yeah.
But I think the message is important. What we're talking about, I think people need to
Indeed.
hear. But it's also the time, and my family's been very understanding, right? I still have some family time. It's not all soaked up, but
Yep.
I usually work till midnight, 1 o'clock every single day,
Yeah.
right? And that's after 7, 8 p.m. or so, that eight to 1. That's like
Yeah.
my invest in me time,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So building things, learning things, watching videos, reading things, doing labs, like just
Yeah.
you got to put in more than 100% if you want to get out more than
Yeah.
100%.
I appreciate you investing in yourself and your future version mainly, and maybe even your future body there next to you. So I mean, you never know, but you do know that you're learning something every time you're trying
Oh,
something, whether that's a failure or a success, whatever small steps. So yeah, it's really good. Cool, cool. So people who again would like to connect with you and follow your journey, and when you're even more ready to go to market and help other people, where can people find you best and easiest?
so robertvdv.com.
Yep.
So VDV like Vandervoort. That's what VDV Labs is. Lack of a better name.
Yep. Cool.
And then vdvlabs.ai. That's the company site. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and X. I
Yep.
don't post a whole lot. It's usually like midnight, 1 o'clock when something really cool happens. So I do
Great.
not follow like marketing approved guidelines for that.
That's
But
all right.
yeah,
Don't
definitely
worry.
connect. I'd love to talk to folks.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys. You've been listening to myself and Robert. I hope that you could take something useful out of this, whether that is to be more future ready, more security aware, and you can take what we've just discussed and turn that into like a foundation also in terms of your investment thesis. For example, if everything needs to be renewed in 5 years, how will that affect your shares for the future, and how will it affect everything which is not catching up on AI as well? So interesting things for sure. I would love to give you the chance, Robert, to close out this podcast with anything at all that you would like to advise the very broad audience, which are interested in many more things than AI as well.
Yeah. So in the whole track of investing in yourself, I think, this is going to take a second, but if you look at Apple's success, it's not hasn't always been because of the particulars of the hardware, the specifications, and so on. Apple made its fortune really by having a particular principle, having a guiding principle and standing by it.
Yeah.
And I think that we all need to really think about that on a fairly regular basis. Like, what is my guiding principle? Like, what do I really stand for? Again, for me, AI, it's governance, ethics, safety, right? The security. These are foundational to me and how I think about how I build things and how I work with my customers. And I think that as long as that guides what I do, right? And so it guides the decisions I make, the places I would work, the people I would work with, and so on. So I think we all just need to think about that, right? Think about what is your principles and stay true to yourself, right? It's not always going to be easy, but a lot of the times, if it's hard, you're on the right path. So I guess that's what I would say.
I will not muddle that at all. Thank you guys for listening. As usual, feel free to share this with someone you care about who would also like to learn as well. So no other ask, more than welcome back. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.